Alexander III, later known to the world as Alexander the Great, was born in Pella, the capital of the Kingdom of Macedon, around July 20th, 356 BCE. He was the son of King Philip II, a brilliant warrior and master organizer, and Queen Olympias, the most influential of Philip's many wives. Though Philip had 7 or 8 consorts, Olympias remained the most esteemed at court, partly because she bore Alexander, the only son deemed worthy of succession, a child with an unmistakable aura from a very young age. When Alexander was born, King Philip was besieging the city of Potidæa. On that same day, he received 3 messages of triumph. General Parmenion had defeated a coalition of Illyrians and Paeonians. Philip's horse had won at the Olympic Games, and the temple of Artemis at Ephesus, one of the 7 wonders of the world, had burned down. Legend had it that Artemis was absent from her temple because she had gone to witness Alexander's birth. Whether truth or myth, these extraordinary omens helped forge the image of Alexander as a child, chosen by the gods, born for greatness. Alexander was raised under the care of Lynike, a trusted woman who was the sister of Cletus the Black, a general who would later serve him loyally. From an early age, Alexander was trained in the essential skills of Macedonian nobility: horseback riding, hunting, playing the lyre, reciting poetry, swordsmanship, and public speaking. His first tutors, Leonidas, a strict relative on his mother's side, and Lysimachus, a scholar from Acarnania, taught not only through books, but also through myths and legends, particularly that of Achilles from the Iliad, whom Alexander idolized as his heroic ideal. Recognizing that Alexander required a superior education, King Philip invited Aristotle, the greatest student of Plato, to be his son's tutor. To win Aristotle's favor, Philip rebuilt the philosopher's hometown of Stegera, which had been destroyed by Macedonian forces. He freed the city's slaves, repatriated exiles, and reconstructed the town as a tribute to knowledge and culture, a political and symbolic gesture. Alexander's classroom was not a royal hall, but a sanctuary of the nymphs in Mieza, a serene and idyllic setting akin to a garden of wisdom. Studying alongside him were other noble youths: Hephaestion, his lifelong confidant; Ptolemy, future founder of the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt; Cassander, a future king of Macedon, and others. Under Aristotle's guidance, they delved into the breadth of Greek knowledge: philosophy, ethics, logic, medicine, astronomy, aesthetics, and poetry. Alexander developed a deep love for Homer, especially a version of the Iliad annotated by Aristotle himself. He treasured the manuscript and carried it with him as an inspiration throughout his campaigns. Beyond books, Alexander was exposed to the political realities of the wider world. The Macedonian court hosted many Persian exiles, including the nobleman Artabazus and his daughter Barzine, who would later become close to Alexander. These conversations offered him rare insights into the inner workings, governance, and strengths and weaknesses of the Persian Empire, knowledge that would prove invaluable in his later conquests. At just 16, Alexander was appointed regent while his father campaigned in Thrace. During this brief period, the Maidi tribe revolted. Alexander swiftly crushed the rebellion, took their territory, and founded a city called Alexandropolis. Later, while assisting Philip in the siege of Perinthus, he saved his father's life in a fierce skirmish. When Macedonia was later attacked by an Illyrian coalition, Alexander led the counterattack and defeated them decisively. Though still a youth, these victories established him as a natural leader, not merely raised to be king, but already proving himself worthy of the throne through talent, courage, and action. Following his victories in Illyria, Alexander's name resounded throughout Macedonia. Yet the glory won on the battlefield could not mend the silent fractures in the royal household. King Philip, increasingly distant from Olympias and Alexander, unexpectedly remarried Cleopatra Eurydice, a noblewoman of pure Macedonian blood. More than a political alliance, this union posed a direct threat to Alexander's position. If Cleopatra bore a son, that child would claim a purer Macedonian lineage. At a banquet, Attalus, Cleopatra's uncle, emboldened by drink, insinuated that Alexander was unfit to inherit the throne. Furious, Alexander hurled his cup at Attalus and stormed out, leaving behind a hall frozen in tension. That very night, he left Pella with his mother, returning to her homeland of Epirus. It was more than a youthful outburst. It marked a rift between father and son that would never truly heal. Time passed. Pressed by his planned campaign against Persia, Philip reconciled with Alexander, restoring him as heir. Yet, history is seldom kind to schemes. At the wedding of Alexander's sister Cleopatra to the king of Epirus, Philip was assassinated by Pausanias, a disgruntled royal guard. Though Pausanias was killed on the spot, the motives behind the murder remain shrouded. Personal vengeance, political conspiracy, or Olympias' influence? Whatever the truth, the crown passed to Alexander. At just 20 years old, he inherited a kingdom barely holding together, shadowed by danger. Greek city-states, from Athens to Thebes, believed Macedonia's strength had died with Philip. Within the court, Attalus's allies and skeptical nobles doubted the young king. All eyes awaited his first misstep. Alexander wasted no time. Ruthless and swift, his actions shocked the court. Attalus was assassinated while stationed in Asia Minor. Cleopatra Eurydice and her infant, potential symbols of a rival dynasty, died under mysterious circumstances. Olympias returned to Pella, wielding power like a queen. The royal household was purged of dissent. No sooner had Alexander secured the throne than he cast aside hesitation. With chilling decisiveness, he led an elite force northward into Thessaly, where certain factions were already scheming to secede from the League. News of Philip's death swept like wildfire across the Greek city-states, reigniting hope in those who longed to shatter the Macedonian yoke. But Alexander arrived before they could act. In Thessaly, he marched straight into the heart of the region, positioning his forces atop the mountain passes and compelling local armies to surrender without bloodshed. To cement his authority, he demanded that the Thessalian council proclaim him supreme commander of the Hellenic League. Amid uncertainty and unrest, the city-states conceded. From there, Alexander turned southward, passing through Thermopylae, site of Leonidas's legendary last stand, and was hailed as the inheritor of Philip's legacy. His forces swelled as he entered Corinth, the League's political center. There, he was formally appointed as commander-in-chief in the war against Persia, the same title Philip had once claimed. This was not just a symbolic honor, but a clear signal. All of Greece, Sparta as ever the lone exception, now recognized Alexander as its leader. In a matter of months, the young heir had transformed from a prince on an unstable throne into the supreme leader of a vast coalition. The city-states, the factions, the rivals of Greece, all were now forced to acknowledge him. He had not yet crossed the Aegean, but already the echo of his footsteps reached the shores of the Persian Empire. In Corinth, amidst councils and ceremonies, Alexander sought out Diogenes, the eccentric philosopher who lived in a wooden tub. The young king approached and asked, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Diogenes looked up, unmoved. "Yes, stand out of my sunlight." The crowd gasped, but Alexander merely smiled and replied, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." In that moment, one glimpsed a different Alexander, not the rising king, but a soul listening to an echo from the shadows. from the far side of ambition. Their contrast, one conquering the world, the other renouncing it, mirrored the paradoxes of power and wisdom. Alexander had done more than preserve his throne. He made others believe it was rightfully his. But the path ahead no longer dealt with court intrigue or domestic alliances. Beyond the Aegean Sea loomed the Persian Empire, vast and foreboding as a mountain on the horizon. All previous maneuvering faded before a greater question. Could this young man succeed where his father never had? Alexander had two goals: to avenge Greece for the previous Persian invasions and to establish an immortal reputation for himself. When he crossed the Hellespont, Dardanelles, he personally presented offerings at the Temple of Troy, using the shield of Achilles, the symbol of the hero he had admired all his life. By the spring of 334 BCE, Alexander was ready. He entrusted the regency of Macedonia to Antipater and set off for Asia with an army of only around 40,000 men, a modest number compared to the mighty Persian Empire. But this was no ordinary expedition. It was a declaration of war against history itself.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed this content and found it interesting, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos.